we're all living.
Yeah. So, historically, there are so many, sort of heroes in the past. Even just starting with the Thanksgiving story in the Wampanoags, you have the Mayhews, Thomas Mayhew and son Thomas Mayhew, who actually attended ceremonies and Thanksgiving festivals. And remember, natives have been having Thanksgiving festivals here for thousands and thousands of years.
Right.
And those are, and you have people like that throughout all of the joint history together, which is, sort of an indictment, because people always say, well, you can't blame them, they're people of their times, but we can always point to people of their times who are actually doing it right.
Yeah, who are doing the right on thing. Yeah, that's
right.
Very true.
It always costs them. Today, it's a difficult question. It's complex, and I don't know how much time I have.
6 minutes.
6 minutes, okay. Because you have two things going on with indigenous peoples. One, you have the general racial thing that happens in America, where we look at racial oppression and systemic racism, et cetera. And then with us, you also have sovereign treaties and colonization that's occurred. And so there are always two things to consider when dealing with Native people, and So the reason I say that is because so many programs basically either continue the dependency or they sort of do it well, but they help assimilate Native people. But I don't think that assimilation is ever going to be the answer for us. What is shown, and recently we just had a study done in Multnomah County here that showed that the disparities are still incredible, 5 and 6 times worse for Native people in almost every area. So we just don't assimilate well. So what that means is that we have to have ways of going back to our traditional ways, and that means the help of the larger community. And I think we're kind of canary in the coal mine too.
So what does that mean, Randy, for the kind of generic narrative of the United States about this kind of melting pot idea? You get this with a lot of Hispanic-speaking people who come, and there's some tension for a while. Or in Minnesota, we have a large refugee population from East Africa and from Somalia, and you can see second-generation, third-generation children start to assimilate into the broader culture. It doesn't seem that happens in the same way with the indigenous peoples. Is that going to pose some kind of an ongoing struggle?
It is, and there aren't a lot of models out there, I have to say. I was going to give you a few of the kind of ones that are sort of working along the old, you have like Steve Saint and what he's doing down with the Donnie people, and you have like Tree of Life out in Rosebud Reservation that's being done, one of the ministries that's a really big help out there in trying to work with the indigenous people. And you have, I just heard about Indiana Wesleyan University that out of 26 new hires, 12 of them were minority and folks from other parts of the world. So there's some kind of little glimmers of hope happening, but we're not at the place we need to be yet. We have a long way to go. And so to sort of lead us down the path to get us to the place where that we can become indigenous, I always talk about that Native people have to be invited to the big person's table. We've been asked to sit at the little person's table. You know how, like Thanksgiving, you have the kids and there's no room, and you sometimes set up a card table.
Right.
And so we need to be at the big person's table, and there's a number of things that need to happen. One of the things I advocate for, and I'm still looking for somebody to catch on to this, is a 50-state tour of Native American listening conferences where white folks fill the places up and natives just come and talk. White folks aren't allowed to talk, but they just listen, and I think that would be a good start.
What would people hear there generally if there was a meeting like that? Can you guess ahead of time what would people typically hear in a listening session like that?
Well, they would hear all the horror stories and all the suicides, and all the losses, and everything that's happened as a result of Western quote unquote civilization, colonization. But then they would also hear about their old ways and how they were good and how that we need to get back to them. And they would hear about diets and how they can't get access to traditional food anymore, and I think out of that, people would say, wow, they're human too. They're not people in the past. They're human, and they hold some answers for us. And that's the part I want to really focus on if we're going to talk about the good stuff. is that as Native Americans and indigenous peoples around the world, we hold the answer in so many areas of healing, so many areas of medicine, so many areas of food and diet and all of these things that we don't have the power to even access anymore, but we still know they're right. And then values, and then even theological constructs. We have a holistic way of looking at the Creator that really is needed more than ever in this day and age. And I really wish I could give you examples of where this is happening. And maybe it is, and I'm glad for people to write me and let me know about these. But I've only heard of just a few real types of reconciliation and where people have given land back and those kinds. I think I've got 4 examples of all my 26 years in Native ministry of folks coming together and say, what can we do to help? What can you tell us what to do?
Well, I think you're the one that gets the right on here, Randy. I think you're the guy for holding out the voice and for making this possible. If people want to stay up to date with what you're doing, what's the best way for them to find you?
They can tap into the George Fox Facebook site. They can tap into Ethnic Space and Faith. Probably the best thing would be in July, I've got a book coming out that's going to deal with a lot of this stuff called Shalom and the Community of Creation, an Indigenous Vision. And that'll be with Erdmans, and that'll be out in July. So,
well, promise us that you'll be willing to come back on the show when the book comes out.
Definitely.
All right, that's excellent. That's Randy Woodley. You can find him over at the George Fox University website. You can also find him all over the place online, and find links over at the Doug Pagitt Radio page on Facebook for Randy. Randy, thanks so much for all the good work that you're doing, and thanks for being on the show. And to anyone who's doing the kind of work that Randy's doing, whether you've been at it for 26 years, and you're still waiting for others to join in, even when you have the faith, the strength, the hope, the love, even when it seems like it's not working quite yet, and you stay with it, well, right on to you. Those are the kinds of people that we need in this world, the kinds of people who stay with it, even when it doesn't seem that people are catching on quite yet. So thank you, Randy, and thanks to all of you who do the good, right thing. May your strength bring strength, may your faith bring faith, may your hope bring hope, and may your love bring love. Talk to you again next week. Doug Pagitt Radio.